In this video, we will work with gradients within Indesign CS6. Gradients are a great way to add interest and effects to your Indesign documents. A gradient is a graduated blend between two or more colors or between two tints of the same color. The output device you use affects how gradient colors separate. Gradients can include paper, process colors, spot colors, or mixed ink colors using any color mode. Gradients are defined by a series of color stops in the gradient bar. A stop is the point at which a gradient changes from one color to the next, and is identified by a color square under the gradient bar. By default, a gradient starts with two colors and a midpoint at 50%. Keep in mind that when you create a gradient using colors of different modes, then print or color separate the gradient, all colors are converted to the CMYK process colors. This may cause the colors to shift and may change your results. To avoid this from happening, it is best practice to specify your gradients using CMYK colors. Users can create, name, and edit gradients using the swatches panel that was discussed in a previous video. If you recall, we have used the swatches panel in the past to create new solid colors and tints as well. To begin, ensure that the swatches panel is open if necessary. Then select the swatches panel menu and select New Gradient Swatch. The New Gradient Swatch dialog box will display. First, type a name for the new gradient swatch in the Swatch Name field. Next, you must select a type. If you recall from the earlier video related to the Color Swatches panel, there are two different types of gradients, linear and radial. A linear gradient changes colors along a single axis, horizontal or vertical. A radial gradient changes color in an outward direction, starting from a central focal point. For this example, I will choose the radial gradient type from the drop-down menu. Next, we must choose the first stop color in the gradient, which is positioned all the way to the left on the slider. You have the option of choosing a color that's already in the swatches panel by selecting the drop-down menu, and then choosing Swatches and selecting a color from the list. Or you can mix a new unnamed color for the gradient. In this example, I'm going to choose CMYK from the list and use the sliders to create my new color. Now that the colors of the gradient have been identified, you have the option to adjust the position of the gradient colors by dragging the color stops located under the gradient ramp bar. To adjust the midpoint between two gradient colors, which at this point is at 50%, drag the diamond icon above the bar and slide it to the left or right. When finished, click the OK or Add button to add the gradient to the swatches panel. Although using the swatches panel is the recommended method for creating and storing gradients, you can also work with gradients by using the gradient panel by selecting the window menu, selecting color, and selecting gradient from the third level drop-down menu. The good news is that you can add a gradient to the swatches panel at any time. The gradient panel is useful for creating an unnamed gradient that won't be used often. You can modify gradients by adding colors to create multicolor gradients or by adjusting color stops and midpoints. It's a good idea to fill an object with the gradient you plan to adjust so that you can preview the effects on the object while you adjust the gradient. We'll discuss the application of colors to objects within Indesign in an upcoming chapter. If you'd like to edit the gradient, simply double-click on the gradient within the swatches panel. Make your changes and then click OK. This concludes our tutorial on working with gradients within Indesign CS6. As we continue with our videos, you will begin to see the value in creating gradients when we start to apply them to objects within our documents. In the meantime, hopefully this video has taken you one step further in helping you to understand the use of color in Indesign and the skills needed to create many color options.